I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict has kind of lost its sexiness, and it's no longer in the news cycle as much, if at all. Why would that possibly be the case? Could it be because Putin is winning? So I wanted to read this article, mainly because, I gotta be honest, I thought it was really funny. Have Western sanctions against Russia failed? As the Ukraine war enters its 7th month, my goodness, a growing number of policymakers, experts, and officials are expressing concerns that Western sanctions against Russia have failed to achieve their intended effect. Could it possibly be because Western so-called experts are complete bellends and Putin has been planning this move since, I would guess, at least the Munich speech, which was, I think, in 2008, if I'm not mistaken? We may never know. Russia's economy shrank by 4% year-on-year over the second quarter, according to data published by Russian Federal Statistics Service Rosstat. The plunge, though significant in absolute terms, was not as drastic as expected by Russian and some Western observers. June data suggests the contraction in the Russian economy seems to have bottomed out, as the situation in some industries is stabilizing. Sergei Konyagin, my apologies for butchering that name, an economist at Sonata Investment Bank told Reuters. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban claimed in a speech last month that the European Union's sanction strategy against Russia has failed. A new strategy is needed, which should focus on peace talks and drafting a good peace proposal instead of winning the war, he said. Orban said the West strategy was built on 4 pillars: that Ukraine can win a war against Russia with NATO backing, the phrase NATO backing to be used extremely loosely there, that sanctions will hurt Russia more than Europe, that the rest of the world will support Western punitive measures against Russia, and that sanctions will critically weaken Russia. We are sitting in a car that has a puncture in all 4 tires. It is absolutely clear that the war cannot be won in this way, Orban said. The latter 3 ties have created a constellation of unexpected challenges for the Western sanctions regime. Russia's central bank took swift measures in the wake of Ukraine invasion to shield the ruble from a flurry of US and EU financial restrictions. Far from being reduced to Ruble, oh, I see what you did there, good sir, very crafty wit. As steward Joe Biden proclaimed in March, the ruble became one of the world's strongest performing currencies this year. Even as Moscow takes unprecedented macroeconomic steps to contain the damage from sanctions, Russian policymakers are honing their tools to evade or otherwise mitigate specific punitive measures. Citing a running list maintained by Yale University's Chief Executive Leadership Institute, proponents of the sanctions regime have noted that over 1,000 companies have curtailed operations in Russia. Though the Western-led financial pullout from Russia appears overwhelming in sheer scale, the reality on the ground is rather more complicated. Russian authorities have successfully enabled a wide range of parallel import schemes, according to a recent report by DW. From Levi jeans to Apple iPhones, numerous common and luxury products continue to be available for purchase in Russia's metropolitan centers, despite the fact that these manufacturers are no longer directly supplying Russian markets. Such goods typically arrive in Russia by way of unauthorized imports from entities based in the former Soviet countries, including Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Armenia. Moscow has opened the floodgates to such activities by lifting restrictions on the resale of many types of goods purchased abroad. These transactions, also known as grey market sales, have totaled 6.5 billion since May and are expected to reach 16 billion by the end of the year, according to Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Industry and Trade Denis Manturov. Other products and services also continue to be available through rebranding and knockoff ventures. McDonald's and Starbucks, both of which ceased operations in Russia in the months following the invasion of Ukraine, have been replaced by successor companies that offer nearly identical products with similar branding. Courts would normally put a swift end to such obvious copycat enterprises, but Russia's legal system is in no mood to lend a sympathetic ear to the patent and infringement claims of Western companies at a time of unprecedented hostility between Russia and the West. Okay, I don't care what anyone says. When I first read that, I laughed my ass off. I thought, oh man, Russia is so based for not giving a fuck and giving the Americans a giant middle finger. Perhaps the greatest long-term challenge to the West's campaign to squeeze Russia over its invasion of Ukraine is the fact that the world's greatest economic powers have not only refused to join the Washington-led sanctions regime, but continue to deepen their trade and financial ties with Moscow. Both India and China have intensified their pace of their energy imports from Russia over the past half year. there have been credible reports of the former selling refined Russian oil to Europe and US importers. Russian earnings from energy exports skyrocketed following the West sanctions barrage earlier this year. Okay, I must admit, I find it incredibly hard to believe anyone is surprised by this. Like, what the hell did America think was going to happen? That they can just stop producing energy and say, okay, don't buy from Russia? What are you, out of your fucking mind? No, we're not going to commit economic suicide for your war, you senile old fucking retard. That's insane. Experts say the effects of sanctions on Russia could take years to fully manifest. Even then, there is no guarantee that the forecasted economic stagnation will occur on a sufficient scale to starve the Kremlin war machine or otherwise produce meaningful positive changes in Russia's foreign policy. Moscow, driven by the conviction that its existential interests hinge on victory in Ukraine, because it probably does, believes it can outlast the West economically and on the battlefield. Russia has so far largely managed to mitigate the pain from sanctions and is shifting its strategy in Ukraine from trying to quickly seize major cities to bleeding Ukrainian forces while in a grinding war of attrition. European consumers, meanwhile, are reeling from skyrocketing heating and electricity bills as officials scramble to contain the energy crisis unleashed by what experts have described as the EU's poorly conceived plan to transition away from Russia's energy imports. With Germany reporting teetering on the verge of a recession, Europe's mounting economic challenges have reignited concerns that EU states should start peeling away from the Western sanctions regime. Even before Russian energy giant Gazprom formally threatened to cut European customers off from gas supplies, polling showed that a majority of Europeans, including 49% of Germans, favored policies aimed at facilitating a negotiated settlement rather than Russia's clear defeat. As the war drags on with no end in sight, these growing trends risk splintering the West United Front on Ukraine sooner than the sanctions regime manages to take a decisive toll on Russia's economy. Okay, I was watching Konstantin from Trigonometry on Rogan, and he says the word he got on the strategy was to wait till winter and essentially strong-arm Germany into easing the sanctions because, if Germans don't have the money to afford energy to heat their homes or have any gas at all, they'll freeze to death. I don't know about the rest of you, but to me that makes Russia look rather good. How about you stop the war, because the peace strategy was pitched months ago, and you can buy energy, the sanity of trade can recommence, and you all don't die? That seems rather sane. Because I'll guarantee you all those Euro plebs with the Ukrainian flags in their bio, they'll be mighty quiet come winter when all their fingers are frozen solid and they can't even turn on their fucking phones. Because there's something about this war that leaves me with either two conclusions. Either a level of unfathomable stupidity I thought never before possible in humanity, or pure psychopathic evil. One or the other. Because I don't see how you look at this war and see main way Russia is fueling the war, selling energy. What is the main way then to drain Russia's revenue? Simple market principles. Increase the supply. Produce more energy, America. Between you and Canada, you are sitting on a colossal mountainous stockpile of oil and natural gas. You can starve the Russian war machine and make money supplying cheaper energy during a worldwide recession. But no, they'd rather funnel taxpayer money into the fucking war machine to weaken Russia during an inflation crisis because America, by the looks of it, will gleefully sacrifice foreign lives to weaken Russia. It seems Washington is hell-bent on funneling funds into the military-industrial complex because it's full of fucking psychopaths. And that is all for today. I will see you all next time.